Welcome, everyone. Thank you for taking the time. My name is Sunil, Potti. I have the privilege of representing the entire Google security team here today. And we're going to be talking about cyber, of course, throughout the session. But we're also going to talk about some AI, of course. You've got to talk about AI if you're at Google Cloud, especially when our CEO's last name has AI in it. So we're going to be talking about cyber and AI, OK? Now, if you recollect our mission from last year, and we broke this down into 3 major initiatives that we had across one Google security, starting with, of course, powered by Mandiant, bringing the world's foremost frontline advisory and intel services, backed with this revolutionary Chronicle-based security operations platform, all delivered via our trusted cloud offering. Now, when you think about how we've actually evolved across these 3 pillars, and we'll talk about some new announcements and new innovations along the way, the thing that still is front and center for all of us in the industry is around, look, in some ways, the more we want to make things secure, the more complex things become. And so if there's a way to use AI to simplify things, not just makes things more secure, then it can become a real game changer for all of us. And so that's essentially going to be sort of like the theme for today's presentation is our roadmap, including things that we're launching today, launched in the last few months, as well as what's coming out in the near future, around how could we break this, this so-called linear correlation between the more secure you want to be, the more complex things are. Can that actually be inversely proportional? Can we actually make things simpler while making things more secure? And there's this age-old saying about the fact that the more things change, the more they stay the same. Of course, we've got different silos, different tooling, and so forth. And ultimately, if you don't take an opinionated approach towards convergence, that is ultimately where it's a little risky because it's going against the grain of organizational behavior. But ultimately, if we can foster that convergence fundamentally in our fabric, that's when we can actually make some step function change. So this concept of convergence, for us, starts with coming from the endpoint. And when we talk about the endpoint, we've got lots of great partners around endpoint detection, in terms of incident response and so forth. But in reality, if you think about the surface area that has the most ubiquitous presence out there from an endpoint side is the browser. And so what if you could activate the browser as a way to converge all of your endpoint protection, both natively as well as with partners? And that's one of our primary big innovations that we launched at our conference today is Chrome Enterprise Premium, which Parisa will talk more about, is about browser as the new endpoint to consolidate a bunch of endpoint protection in conjunction with synergies with our endpoint protection partners. Second, you already know that we've done a pretty good job in terms of consolidating the various silos around security operations with Chronicle, Simplify, as well as Mandia and Threat Intel, which we'll talk about infusing Threat Intel directly into the workflows of security operations. And then last but not least, we announced SEC Enterprise, which is essentially a game-changing cloud risk management solution consolidating both cloud security with enterprise security operations. And all of this is, of course, in addition to sort of beefing up the portfolio around Mandia and Threat Intel, frontline advisory services, all into one singular offering alongside our partners. And so when you look at these convergence pillars, ultimately the way we think about this is to not just overlay these pillars with AI, but to actually infuse AI into each of these workflows to reimagine them end-to-end. And we'll spend some time with Steph actually walking through step by step each of the simplest workflows to the most complex ones in the way that we are using AI to actually accomplish both incremental value as well as step function value. But the one thing that we have looked at AI a little differently in security, especially in Google Cloud than probably any other group, is that unlike most groups, we have a lot of data. And so that's why if we can combine AI with TI, as in bring in our world-class Mandiant threat intel, virus total, safe browsing, all the signals from Chrome and Android, as well as Google Tag, all fused into our AI platform, then the kind of value that we can unlock across these pillars would be game-changing. And so we're going to spend a lot of time across all of these in the rest of the session. But before we get into it, as always, just to take a step back to really learn about what is really going on, the state of the art in terms of the cyber landscape, who better than our very own Kevin Mandia. Kevin, come on up.
As some of you know, Mandia was founded 20 years ago with the premise to build the best security practices. You needed to know more about the threat actors than anybody else. And the way we went about knowing more about the threat actors than anybody else, well, we did it in a couple ways. First, we had the premise of let's respond to every single breach that matters. That if we own the moment of a security incident at Mandiant, we're able to really see the new and novel attacks before anybody and have an innovation cycle to impact the products and security programs we all rely on to defend our organizations. So that was one, respond to every breach that matters, figure out what happened and what to do about it. The other steps that we took to know more about threat actors than anybody is we started a global threat intelligence program run by Sandra, Joyce. And those folks speak over 30 languages, they're in over 20 countries, and they look to track with great rigor and discipline the tools, tactics, and procedures used to break into networks and circumvent our common safeguards. And when I look at those two groups and how we've evolved over the last 20 years, as I'm speaking today, we have over 500 folks responding to cybersecurity incidents. And these are the breaches that are at scale and scope where people need help, and there's been a circumvention of common safeguards, and there's an impact to them. So we kind of get to see firsthand the new and novel. We have over 350 threat analysts trying to figure out who did these breaches, why did they do these breaches, and let's get attribution, and let's get some pattern matching to it. In the last 12 months, we've responded to over 1,100 security incidents, and for the next few minutes, I'm going to share a couple of the things that we've learned during those moments. Everyone in this room probably already knows this, but for the three of you that want to know why, cybersecurity's never been more important than now. And I've been saying this probably since 1993, and I've meant it every year. But let me give you 3 reasons why cybersecurity matters more today than yesterday, and it's going to matter more tomorrow. First and foremost, our dependence on technology, both in our work and in our private lives. We are all relying on technology in ways we didn't 10 years ago, didn't 5 years ago, and certainly didn't 20 years ago. So we're doing that. The second reason cybersecurity is more important than ever before is it's getting more standards, legislation, and regulations that are putting attention of executives on it, and it's getting more government inspection. As an example of this, in the United States, the Security and Exchange Commission, the very organization that represents shareholders' interests in public companies, provided some cybersecurity guidance both in annual reporting of public companies has to include how do you govern your cybersecurity program, what is your cybersecurity processes, and what you need to disclose if you have a material breach, how timely you need to disclose. Those things get board level attention, period. And then you're seeing privacy rules globally impacting how we're thinking about cybersecurity. So third reason, and probably the downer a little bit, on why cybersecurity has never been more important is this: the threats are getting more advanced. And I tend to take stage a lot and talk about the threat landscape, and everybody goes, wow, it's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. But I will end with a positive note. But let's start with the tough stuff first. There's more of everything when it comes to threats. There's more threat actors, there's more threat groups. There's more intrusions. There's more sharing of malicious code on the internet. There's better operational security. There's more apex attackers that live off the land when they break into you, accessing your resources the same way your employees do. And there's more zero-day attacks. And I want to drill down a little bit into the zero-day attacks. In the last year, we found 97 zero-day attacks used in the wild between Google and Mandiant Threat Intelligence. We released a report on this about 2 weeks ago. When you drill down on those zero-day accounts or attacks, these are attacks that have no patch. They're going to work if you run these applications that are vulnerable. That's fine. 0 days have been around since we started writing software. 97 is 50% more than the zero-day attacks we saw in the wild. In 2022, it was 67. So we went 97 down to 67. Actually, excuse me, it was 62. And the most we ever saw was 106 in 2021. But all these numbers are large. I mean, that's a lot of zero-day attacks. What's most remarkable about those zero-day attacks is in 2019, there was 4 vendors that really were attributed to all the zero days we saw used in the wild. And it was the big 3, Microsoft, Apple, Google, and a 4th. Today, when we look at the last year, 21 different vendors had zero days that were exported in the wild. So went from 4 to 7 to 13 to 17 to 21, and we see going up because of supply chain and focus and scale of the offense being able to find zero days, and more than just the big 3. They're going beyond that. So we've heard about there's more threats, there's more threat actors, there's more zero days, and when we look at those zero days, 10 of the 97 were used by criminal element. That meant 87 are used by cyber espionage or unknown reasons. We are all up against an emerging threat landscape that changes, evolves, thinks, learns, and attacks. If the attackers are getting more advanced, your defense needs to get more advanced. That's simple. What you're going to hear over the next 45 minutes is what Google's security operations platform is going to do to think and learn and assist you in defending your networks against the evolving threat landscape, and what Google's doing to help you safeguard your enterprise. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. So I think we're going to use this structured approach to kind of double-click into the rest of the presentation, starting with how we've actually looked at converging cloud security with enterprise security operations, so that we're going beyond posture management or workload protection to deliver a holistic cloud risk management offering. And so when you sort of unpack this, and you've seen the evolution from CSPM, CWPP to a CNAPP solution and so forth, but ultimately, we had this project called Nexus. Over the last few years inside Google, it was one of the largest projects undertaken, which actually took an intentional approach of taking all the piece parts as well as some of the combined parts across the portfolio to actually fuse it into one single unified offering, not just in the UX, but also in the back end, okay? And that is what we're sort of unveiling in the form of SEC Enterprise as this go beyond just CNAPP or security operations to do things that would actually provide built-in risk management solutions for all your enterprise footprints, whether it be on Google, AWS, and so forth, as well as obviously integrating with Chronicle so that your enterprise logs, enterprise threat management can also come into the picture, okay? And so obviously there's lots of details here that we'll get into in the detailed session and so forth. But beyond, if you look at the top part of this graphic, beyond covering things like posture, threats, obviously identity is an important aspect and so forth, a few things that I'll bring to your attention that we thought differently from day one was to actually build in response, build in remediation into the core workflows for cloud security, which doesn't exist today. Because right now it's actually delegated down into a Jira ticket and so forth. But what if you could actually reimagine, fusing in, remediation workflows directly into cloud security and risk management workflows? That was the first thing. And the second thing, which is actually a whole bunch of capabilities put together, what we're terming as the Google Security Fabric is the lower half, right? The lower half is essentially 4 moving parts. First, it's the same stack that powers our enterprise security operations of Chronicle, which is the planet-scale data lake, combined with the same Gemini AI for security capabilities that Steph will talk about, fused across cloud security, threat intel, as well as enterprise security operations. But then, in addition to that, we are actually infusing in what we are calling as applied threat intel, not just into your security operations, but also into your cloud security footprint, all combined to power this continuous risk engine. The continuous risk engine was an acquisition that we made a few years ago called Forseti. It's taken us a while to actually build in the capabilities across multiple cloud footprints because it is a very complicated piece of technology that needs to create a holistic, dynamic sort of simulation of your entire cloud footprint to assess your overall threat exposure. And that is a non-trivial environment that we actually put to test within our own GCP environment first before we brought it out to the customers. And so it's this combination of what I would call the underpinnings of a common architecture across cloud security and our enterprise security operations that we believe is going to be somewhat the hard path to actually take towards convergence, okay? But ultimately, hopefully, the more productive path to our end users. And then last but not least, what we also did was to actually say, look, at the end of the day, we've got awesome Mandiant folks globally, as threat analysts, incident analysts, and so forth. Obviously, they're only used in very specific incidents and so forth. Is there a way to democratize that knowledge into the core workflows of cloud security? And so that's really what Mandiant Managed Hunt is about. And this applies to both cloud security and enterprise security operations. It's a Mandiant analyst on demand. And it's essentially an integrated capabilities from your cloud security tenant. Your footprints across your workloads on your clouds are automatically sort of cataloged into our Mandiant portfolio in the back end with our analysts who could actually come in, triage, investigate on your behalf in your environment, okay? And by the way, Mandiant Hunt is something that is obviously available both for your cloud security footprint as well as for your enterprise security operations with Chronicle and so forth. So that's SEC Enterprise, and obviously that's our core flagship cloud security solution. Along the way on our Trusted Cloud offering, we've continued to raise the bar for a variety of controls across the board, starting with the fact that we have a ton of innovations now that are now GA, including principal access boundaries and a full-blown privileged access management solution for GCP. We also continue to raise the bar on confidential computing. Confidential computing no longer is just for Intel versus AMD, but now into the realm of GPUs, and you'll see a lot more innovations around confidential AI coming out. And then, of course, on the network side, we've done the same thing to obviously release a combination of IPS and IDS functionality into next-generation firewall alongside GAing the Cloud Armor Enterprise product. And then last but not least, and this is, even though it gets a small section of this presentation, it's half of our team, which is how do you actually ensure the integrity, the trust and safety and sovereignty of Google Cloud as a platform. And if you remember my session last year, we had the number of vulnerabilities across GCP. We have a few, but it's way smaller than the other two clouds, and definitely an order of magnitude smaller than the cloud that rhymes with failure, right? So, and that focus on ensuring the trust and safety around our core platform is extended to the realm of sovereignty over the last few years with these sovereign controls, right? And so now we have Audit Manager live as well as a variety of sovereign controls. And all of this is being manifested country by country globally, starting with Europe, where the stringent requirements are there with SecNum Cloud, and partnering with Thales there to provide essentially a trusted partner cloud kind of construct, which is essentially the full-blown cloud capability. So it's not another sharded version that is only 1/10 the functionality. It's essentially GCP, but meeting the high bar of SecNum Cloud. And essentially, in doing so, we have now replicated a version that, whether it's France, whether it's Germany, whether it's the Middle East, whether it's India, Japan, Korea, and so forth, over a period of time, can actually have a sovereign cloud on their terms from Google. Okay. And so when we look at going beyond cloud risk management now into the other pillars that we talked about, when we look at, obviously, endpoint as the new browser, as we talked about, with Chrome being the most ubiquitous footprint out there. It's got, hundreds of millions of endpoints already deployed on the enterprise, a few billion in the consumer side. The thing that came to bear was that over the years, it's already been a very secure footprint. Is there a way to fuse our beyond corp capabilities, secure browsing capabilities, to actually bring a different level of protection and a different surface area for integration into your frontline endpoint protection with Chrome Enterprise? And to sort of walk you through the genesis of it and what exactly are we doing with it and what will come in the near future, I'd like to, obviously call Parisa. Many of you know her. She was one of the founding leaders of Chrome in the past. Now is the GM for Chrome overall, with the consumer and enterprise side, but also goes with the moniker of Security Princess. Parisa, come on up. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning. I've been working on cybersecurity in browsers for now over a decade at Google, and it's been really incredible to see how the web and security landscape have advanced over that time. If you think back to 2008, it was all too common for your browser to crash and you'd lose hours of work, or worse, your whole machine would be compromised with latest drive-by malware of the week. Personally, really proud of the role that Chrome has played to advance security and just work on the web over that time since we launched 15 years ago. And we had humble beginnings, but today, as Sunil shared, we have billions of users around the world who are using Chrome on their digital devices to both access information and just get work done safely. And that can be Chrome on your PC or your MacBook, or your iPhone, or your Android phone or tablet. And I'm proud that Chrome has been a leader in security over that time, building features that once disrupted industry and now have become established industry security norms. Some things I'm proud of include advanced security sandboxing and novel exploit mitigations. And we continue to lead industry in our response to zero-day vulnerabilities. Now, some people think of Chrome as just a consumer product, but Chrome has helped hundreds of millions of business users in organizations around the world to use a secure and reliable browser. And we also have key management tools for IT and security teams. We like to say that we do serious work, but we manage to not take ourselves too seriously. For example, my team, some of whom is here, thought it was really important to share this critical security update with everyone at Cloud Next. It's our infamous offline Dino game, which now has an update inspired by the enterprise environment. If you're having Wi-Fi connectivity issues, give it a try. Let me know what your high score is. But maybe more seriously, today browsers are no longer just a portal to the internet. And we've seen a transformation of the work environment over the past few years, with browsers essentially serving as the new endpoint, the place where almost every high-value activity or interaction with the enterprise is happening. Think about it. Authentication, access, communication and collaboration, administration, and more. These things have become browser-centric activities in the modern enterprise. And the browser is also where we see our interactions with AI systems increasingly taking place, whether that's a web-based chatbot or with UI of AI-driven agents that will act on our behalf. And so as we think about security across the enterprise, the endpoint continues to be a critical source of telemetry for security operations teams who are working hard to detect, investigate, and respond to threats targeting organizations. And I want to give a quick shout out to all those hardworking IT and security teams. It's where I started my career. I know it can sometimes be under-recognized and thankless. And in practice, it's becoming even more challenging given remote work, reliance on an extended workforce, and just the proliferation of new devices that aren't even part of an organization's managed fleet. So as these trends continue to accelerate, I think it's clear that the browser is not only a natural place to focus, but it's perhaps the most effective enforcement point for endpoint security in the modern enterprise. So we're super excited this week to announce Chrome Enterprise Premium. And this is a new scaled frontline of defense for the enterprise to redefine, to simplify, and importantly, to strengthen endpoint security. Chrome Enterprise Premium brings together the most trusted enterprise browser with Google's advanced security capabilities. And this includes enterprise controls, security insights and reporting, context-aware access control, and advanced threat and data protection. With the introduction of Chrome Enterprise Premium, millions of enterprise users, employees, and the extended workforce can get the best of Chrome and also the best of Google security delivered instantly where people are already doing their work every day. It's the best and easiest way to make Google part of your security team, and it's available today. You can get it set up right away, and we have a dedicated breakout session to learn more. So get in touch, come talk to me, our security and Chrome Enterprise sales team. We're excited to work with you. Now back to Sunil.
Great job, Parisa. A lot went into building this product out there because, as you know, in a big company like Google, there's many, many groups to pull together to actually have a unified offering because it has implications around, I arguably say, probably the one security product that has the most footprint out in the world out there. So very excited about Chrome Enterprise, especially, as Parisa said, in the world of using it for secure prompt engineering, secure data protection, essentially in the whole world of AI interactions and so forth. So you'll see a lot more announcements on specifically that area in the second half of this year in Chrome Enterprise. Now, moving on quickly to, obviously, modern security operations. This has been our core bailiwick now for cloud security in Google, as many of you know, powered by Google in the, Chronicle in the back end, now infused with Mandia and so forth, and a variety of capabilities. This product is on fire, right? As hopefully many of you can attest to. There are a couple of core things that I feel really, really bullish about. Obviously, we've continued to stay paranoid in terms of being humble and hungry, in terms of ensuring that the cost of delivering a solution like this continues to go down every year, but do it not at the expense of functionality. So the whole scale without limits, combined with the fact that you can now apply threat intel in the context of your workflows. And this is something that I won't do good justice to, for sure, unless you attend the sessions with Chris and the team that actually double-click into applied threat intel for security operations. But essentially, the best way that, to really understand applied threat intel is in the form of the fact that, look, today you actually have specialized threat, detailed threat analysis. Many of you know we would use separate tools for it. But can you actually, as an operator, focus on alerts and threats without doing advanced threat analysis? That's essentially our end game with applied threat intel in security operations. And obviously, as Steph will walk you through, this is the one area that has the most juiciest real estate in applying AI all the way from parser generation to playbook generation to investigation assistance and so forth that will demonstrate a series of functionality around AI. Now, just to keep the ball rolling, this is just a bit more repetitive here, is the big thing associated with SecOps is this applied intel or intel-driven outcomes that we talk about. And as we'll get into more details around each of these things, the manifestation of many of these capabilities is in the form of this solutions that drive end outcomes. So last year we announced Cyber Shield. It was deployed globally in a few global nations, and it continues to become top of mind in empowering nations to go from playing defense to playing offense, right? And it's a combination of, obviously, powered by SecOps, but fused with Mandiant consulting, partner-led capabilities so that we're actually empowering a nation to actually, be proactive rather than be reactive. And to talk more about the evolution of Cyber Shield, all the way from Kuwait is our great friend, Dr. Amar. Please welcome Dr. Amar to stage.
Thank you very much, Sunil. It's a pleasure to be here. In Kuwait, we are on a journey of national digital transformation. In January 2023, we announced a strategic alliance with Google Cloud to commence a digital transformation roadmap across government entities and state-owned enterprises. This alliance enables us to deliver our national vision, New Kuwait 2035, which places our ambition to digitize government services and migrate national data securely to the cloud as one of Kuwait's top national priorities. Central to our transformation vision is modernizing cybersecurity to protect the infrastructure and the data of our country. In our assessment, we knew that the complexity of transforming detection, threat detection, and response can only be done with the help of a technology leader and the critical partners for delivery. And that's where Google came into the picture. We believe defending a nation requires united national cyber defense with real-time knowledge sharing and situational awareness of the threat landscape. Our vision for future secure national defense is aligned with Google. It would allow us to take our capabilities to the next level and to provide a federated national security operations centers and more. But providing a federated sun for a nation is not an easy task. And based on our requirement, we saw that Google's security operation platform would suit our needs. Government entities in Kuwait will be able to integrate with the central government SOC, as well as modernize their legacy technology and operating model with a new cloud-native approach that will not only allow them to streamline national security operation, but also increase knowledge sharing and collaboration among entities, as well as developing the skill required for a modern detection, investigation, and response program. And to help our teams, Mandiant incident responders and security consultants will deliver knowledge and share best practices. And please let's not forget our partner Accenture, who will help us to provide managed security and implementation services to scale our team as needed. Ultimately, the combination of Google, Mandiant, and Accenture will help us to achieve our ultimate goal, is to modernize our cybersecurity approach and provide and deliver a secure future for our nation. Thank you very much all, and back to you, Sunil.
You know, I know he covered it in 3 minutes or 4 minutes, but that took many months to pull together. And we're still in the early stages of a pretty large, hopefully, successful outcome for a great nation. So when we get to the last part of the presentation around AI, obviously in security, as I mentioned at the beginning, one of the things that is unique in our area in cloud security is that we are blessed with really relevant data to train our models in the world of security out of the box. So we don't necessarily have that corpus for the rest of our portfolio, right, in developers or infrastructure. Whereas in the world of security, we have all of the signals that we've used in the past from Chrome and safe browsing. We have Mandiant threat intel, we have VirusTotal. Now we are adding in Google Tag, which we have never exposed externally, to actually train our foundational model on Gemini. And that's what we expose in the form of SecLM. And this data that we talk about, obviously I won't talk through all the details around the full breadth of insights that Mandiant threat intel alongside VirusTotal provide, but the model that was trained using these data sets now does more than just, if I can call it pre-trained on that security data sets, now has a series of capabilities, including optimized reasoning, as well as essentially a clean validated API that you can just call in, that on an ongoing basis, that on the back end, you're actually getting that model trained, as well as prompt engineered by us on behalf of everything that we actually see in the wild, whether it be from Mandiant directly or from our own internal researchers. And so this, if I can call it SecLM or API, is the underpinning for everything that we do for Gemini for security, okay? So you essentially have the core Gemini platform, then you have SecLM being Gemini for security, and then we manifest our first-party products, whether it be SecOps, cloud security, threat intel, and of course our partner products, as well as our customer products, okay? And so rather than, double-clicking into this on my own and just to show this in action, sort of the most exciting portion of our presentation today is the real demo for the next 9 minutes with our very own Steph. Steph, coming up.
Thank you, Sunil. Hi, folks. How you doing? All right, great. We're in the home stretch with this demo. How you doing? There we go. Okay, there we go. Thank you. So as Sunil mentioned, we've been infusing SecLM, all that security expertise throughout all of our security products. And for example, even in December, when we GA'd natural language search and case summarization, we were the first to do that in an integrated SecOps platform, which was pretty exciting. In fact, one of our customers has said so far that these capabilities are already enabling their team to detect and respond to threats sooner and with less toil, which is great. It's boosting productivity, helping to onboard their talent more quickly. So early days, we sure have a long way to go, but we're pretty excited about this kind of early feedback, reinforcing that we're on the right track, and really sort of integrating, as Sunil said, the best threat intelligence with AI. And now I'm excited to show you a little bit about that now. Okay, so let's say that I'm a SOC analyst. I'm onboarding into a new job. I'm in my case view. This is where I typically spend my day, and I see that case summary for me, what's going on with this particular prioritized alert, the next steps I should take. And I see here that there is that applied threat intelligence already enriched on this case, which is pretty cool. So I don't have to go out to VirusTotal or Mandiant, for example, to start really understanding any of the sort of metadata that has been brought to me in this case. It's all right here for me. Okay, so I noticed that there's a particular piece of malware here called hangman.v2 that I'm not really familiar with, so I want to learn more about that. I'm immediately brought into the latest Mandiant intelligence about this particular malware, but now I want to learn a little bit more, and I can do that with Gemini. So I'm going to say, what is hangman.v2? Tell me a little bit more about that. So right now what's happening is Gemini is searching through the grounded corpus of Mandiant's frontline intelligence to give me some information here, summarizing a bit on hangman.v2. Well, I want to know, let's see, how does hangman.v2 persist? I want to see how it actually gets into my environment. Hopefully it doesn't get into my environment, but that's part of what I'm investigating here today. So it turns out it's going to get into my environment by adding itself to the registry through this particular command. Okay, yikes. I don't really want that to be in my environment, so I'm going to go find out whether or not it is. Back on this overview, I'm back in the case. I see that the host name here that would be affected is called linminer01. So now I'm going to ask Gemini conversationally to assist me with this investigation. I'm going to say, find me registry modification events on linminer01, let's say over the past week. Okay, so what's going on here right now is Gemini is taking my natural language input, parsing that to this unified data model, and then running the search. Also, what's happening, a couple other things. You'll notice that Gemini reloaded the page for me. So I didn't have to navigate there, which is great. It's my first day. I don't really know how to use this tool necessarily. So Gemini has just brought all of the important SIM data to me for that search and has also summarized exactly what's going on. So it turns out, okay, yikes, 56 events, registry modification events with this particular user I'm not familiar with on that host name. Okay, I don't want this to be the case. I'm going to go ahead and say, can you go ahead and create a rule from this activity? Okay, let's see. What's going on right now is Gemini is maintaining the context of this conversational investigation that we're having, taken my natural language input of just asking for creating a rule from this activity and given me exactly what I would need in order to have a new detection here, which again, if I say open in rule editor, Gemini reloads the page for me so I don't have to navigate around. I don't necessarily have to know how to do that. Gemini is going to guide me as I'm doing that work, which is pretty exciting stuff. Okay, so let's say I wanted to go ahead and isolate linminer01, that's close the case. Or now I could also create a playbook if I wanted to. Thanks to Gemini, this got a little bit easier as well. So now I can create a playbook from natural language. So I can put in exactly what I want to happen. I'm telling Gemini, hey, for those registry key change alerts, I want you to build a playbook for me. And that playbook should enrich all the entity types, bring in the best of VirusTotal, all that Mandiant threat intelligence goodness. I want to enrich the destination user with some Google IAM. And Gemini, if you see that there's anything suspicious here, go ahead and create case tags and prioritize the case accordingly. And what's going on now is that Gemini has just taken that natural language input, given me exactly what's going to happen, the trigger, the actions that are associated with that, and now I can easily drag and drop, I can edit any of the particular components from this case, which is pretty exciting stuff. I think it's exciting. Yes, okay. Great, great. It's really about our customers thinking it's exciting, though. But thanks for the clap. That's what that was. Appreciate it. But in short, ultimately what's happened here is that Gemini in SecOps has really just assisted me in moving through the integrated platform, which is critical to bring all those otherwise disparate workflows together in a seamless investigation experience. This is what we're doing with Gemini. This is in context of my detection and response workflows. As you could see, Gemini was going with me wherever I was. And everything that I just showed you is now currently in preview. Pretty exciting. Yeah. And as you heard from Sunil, that same investigation and response workflow, the same user experience, the same stack is what you're seeing here now with Gemini and Security Command Center. So we're fusing SecOps and cloud security. As a vulnerability analyst, I don't have to relearn a new platform. All of that AI and TI is built in that same workflow that we just saw. And given that SEC Enterprise integrates response workflows, the remediation around misconfigurations and vulnerabilities directly in this platform, as you can see now, Gemini is going to summarize prioritized cases for those analysts as well, so they don't have to toil through what to do next or why a particular issue is an issue. Plus, also in SEC, vulnerability analysts are able to search, similarly as we just saw, over their posture data using natural language. And this is all in addition to what we announced last year, which are summaries of simulated attack paths. As Sunil was saying, that risk engine that's saying these are your most critical points of exploit that you should pay attention to first. Gemini will summarize those too. Also, if I wanted to dig a little deeper in the latest frontline intelligence, beyond the conversational search that I just showed, I could also, in VirusTotal, read reports that have automatically been summarized from me from automatically ingested open source intel, which is great. This is going to save me, if I'm a threat analyst, from having to manually analyze TTPs or indicators of compromise or other cyber threat activity in disparate platforms. And finally, we're also bringing Gemini and security now to Google Cloud admins with Gemini Cloud Assist. So now admins can spend less time having to toil through all of the things that are required to sort of achieve least privilege, especially thanks to 3 new advancements, which I'll show here. First, instead of wondering how best to protect my data, I can ask Gemini for the latest recommendations on confidential computing. And so this is going to give me the latest insights I need to have the right controls in place, particularly for sensitive data. Second, instead of having to manually figure out which encryption keys to create, I can now ask Gemini, what are the right keys to use right at the moment of resource creation? Plus, we're going to go ahead and provide recommendations on which keys to rotate or change over time based on best practices, which is going to keep me in a strong posture, which is what I want. And third, instead of analyzing which IAM roles to update individually, often after somebody understandably complains because they can't do the thing they're trying to do, Gemini now proactively recommends which permissions to change and why, based on user behavior, and also enables conversational troubleshooting of access issues, which typically requires sort of going line by line to figure those things out. So again, it's trying to bring all of those otherwise disparate workflows into a much more conversational experience to relieve some of the toil that these cloud admins generally have to go through in order to secure the platform. Okay, woo! Okay, that's a lot. Yeah, thank you. Okay, great. Clapping for the team, I love it, thank you. Okay, so this is really just the beginning of our journey to infuse Gemini into every Google security experience to get to the ultimate goal here, which is to evolve the security lifecycle to be semi-autonomous. Because that is where we're going. Gemini can and should drive most tasks and facilitate the workflows for the customer. And we imagine a state here when you never drift from your ideal state. And you don't have to write another rule. You don't have to investigate noise. Gemini's got all the context to separate the signal from the noise. And you never have to write another playbook, because Gemini has the context of what you're trying to do. And those security agents that we've been hearing about are always running to help you achieve those outcomes. We're going to make it a lot easier in the meantime to do these things, as I hope that you just saw in that demo. But that's where we're going. And it's pretty exciting. I'm really excited about it. I hope you are excited about it too. And I'm pretty sure Sunil's excited about it, but I'm not totally positive. Sunil, are you excited about it too?
Somewhat.
Okay.
All right. All right.
Okay, there we go. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Steph. You know, one thing you can count on is just when I've put the audience to sleep, Steph will definitely wake you all up, right? So another round of applause for Steph, please. Thank you. So the 1 million context window, the large context window size capabilities that you may have seen demonstrated across the conference today was somewhat as a private preview 2 months ago with just a few developers inside Google. And when you look at, some of you are engineers yourselves, but engineers tend to be very cynical, especially on their own products. In many ways, some of our own engineers have been some of our, I'll just call it vocal critics on, hey, are we doing the right things with Gemini, et cetera, et cetera. And one of them who got access to it, probably in security, probably the only person who got access to it, because there were only 25 engineers who got early access to the large context window out of DeepMind, was Bernardo. And Bernardo, again, behind the scene is a very popular guy, but he's just a person who doesn't spend much time in the limelight. He's the founder of VirusTotal, alive and kicking 15 years later inside Google, doing great things. VirusTotal is even better than what it was before. And he plays around at like 5:30 a.m. Pacific time, which is evening Spain time. 5 weeks ago, he sends this chat message to me, Steph, and 5 others, saying, look, I played around with this context window. This is a thing. And we've never heard him say this, by the way. He says, here's what I did in the last few hours. He took all the files. Obviously, VirusTotal has a lot of binaries and, as you know, quite a bit of repository, and ran one scenario through the 1 million context window, which did not work before with both the prior version of Gemini or the latest version of ChatGPT, okay? Because he had to chunk the files and run scans to understand whether the code is malicious or not. And he ran this particular real-life example through 1 million context window, and it, one, accurately identified WannaCry. Second, it accurately pointed out what the kill file, if you folks remember the URL to point it to. And third, if you folks remember the whole saga of WannaCry, it took many hours, and luckily with some great researchers to get in front of it, it took Gemini, large context window, 37 seconds. So, and again, he reasserts at the back that this is a real thing for us now. And so, obviously, we're jamming pretty hard. Some of this stuff is in preview mode, as Steph mentioned, but genuinely within the engineering ecosystem inside Google, we feel like this is something real now that we can now bring to bear, definitely for cyber, but also for the rest of the use cases. So just stay close to all the improvements as well as all the updates that are coming out on Gemini for security, but also Gemini in general, because I think there's going to be a fast loop of iteration over the next few months. Now, before we close off, obviously, this is not a single vendor solution set. It takes a village. There's very, if I can call it a varied set of partners over many years that have been in support of our Google security ecosystem. So thank you for all the support that you've shown in actually driving a true open but opinionated security ecosystem as compared to some of our competitors and so forth. So now, when we bring everything back together, hopefully this gave you a little bit of a bird's eye view of the key sessions to really focus on, all the way from SecOps to how do you actually use Gemini for security, to obviously cloud risk management, as well as our frontline defense, and Chrome Enterprise, of course. And hopefully you'll be spending the time required to go into each of the sessions, because in the sessions we've paid specific attention to talk about real-life examples, including the one that I just talked about around WannaCry, but varieties of those are actually demonstrated in each of these solutions. So with that, thank you, everyone. Thank you for taking the time. I know it means a lot, so have a great next.